Welcome to City Cinematheque, where the art and pleasure of the movies are the subject of serious discussion. I'm your host, Jerry Carlson, and I teach film studies at the City College of the City University of New York. Today we're wrapping up our 5-week series dedicated to contemporary Bulgarian cinema, not a cinema that we in America know very well. Today we're going to be screening a film from 2002 entitled Emigrants. And not surprisingly, it's about 3 young men who are doing their best to get out of Bulgaria in this particular moment. It's directed by Ivalo Ristov and by Ludmil Todorov, a very interesting pairing of an actor and an experienced film director. We'll talk about that and a number of other things after today's screening. It's a pleasure to have back on City Cinematheque the distinguished actress, producer, and cultural worker from Bulgaria, now resident in the United States, Jana Karaivanova. Now, take this opportunity to enjoy the pleasures of a very strange comedy that says a lot about emigrants. Welcome back to City Cinematheque. I hope you've enjoyed this opportunity to see the 2002 Bulgarian film, Emigrants. It's a film that's quite different from a number of the other ones that we've seen in this series, and we have 30 minutes to explore that difference, its distinctive qualities. Joining us once again on City Cinematheque is Jana Karaivanova, who is an actress. We saw her actually in the first film in this series, Glass Marbles, a producer of film herself, as well as the director and founder of the Bulgaria-America Cultural Exchange, which brings to the United States Bulgarian cinema. Welcome back, Jana.
Thank you, Jerry.
Great. Let's just talk about this film, and let's start with the fact that it has 2 directors. Not every film has 2 directors. Who are the 2 directors, and why would the film have 2 directors?
Why? I don't know.
Okay.
To be honest with you, it has 2 directors.
Well, who are they?
And it actually doesn't have 2 directors.
Okay.
It has 1 director and 1 great actor who's directing this time. Now, the film was made by Ludmil Todorov, who's the generation of Ivan Cherkelov that you saw Glass Marbles. And so Ludmil Todorov is a very well-known director from this generation. Ivalo Hristov is a very well-known actor, the same generation. He has more than 120 roles in theater and in movies. Very talented actor. This time he decided maybe to go further and to direct, to stand behind the camera. So Emigrants is his first work as director and 4th work for Ludmil Todorov.
Oh, okay. Okay. So it's that kind of collaboration. One of the things that people who have not had the pleasure or the experience of visiting a movie set need to understand is that the movies are many, many things, and one of the things they are is a very complicated industrial production process. There are lots of things happening at the same time, and the notion of dividing labors or sometimes working in combination to achieve certain things, I think is probably best known by all the brothers who end up working on films together, who become these kinds of units. So in a certain sense, we have a bias against that because it's always nice to think of one single director as the author of the film in some sense. But in fact, the way in which movies are made, the mode of production, is a complicated industrial one in which people can share power and share kinds of decision making. Something that, as a working actress, you've seen happen on doubtless many a project. Let's talk about the kind of portrait that this film gives of Bulgarian society today and the kinds of young men we see in this. Who are these kinds of characters? That is, from the point of view of the movie, who are these young men and how do they fit or not fit into Bulgarian society?
This is a new category of men in Bulgaria, I believe. Now, let's start with the title, Emigrants. 2 directions here. I mean, first of all, we have great immigration lately for the past 10 years from Bulgaria. But this guys in the movie, I believe, are mostly mentally had emigrated from the reality. You know,
Right.
that's my impression. Basically, they're intellectuals, high educated people who somehow cannot fit in the nowadays society. Doesn't fit anywhere. So they're pushed into this comic situation with their own lives that they can't identify with themselves. Like one of the guys is a poet,
Right.
and graduated in literature and has to carry these cement bags, you know,
Right.
to make some money. And I believe that Immigrants is mainly looking from this point of view. People in Bulgaria, in all the post-communist societies,
Right,
by
exactly.
the way, who some kind cannot make this transition or are not making it easily, you know, and right now are stuck in a state of mental and intellectual immigration.
Okay, I think that states it very, very well. One of the things that's interesting to me about the film is that the film withholds that information about them for a while, or at least to a Western viewer, because we just see them in their sort of first comically absurd situations in which they're powerless, and in the film, it's I would say incrementally revealed that they are not just these buffoons, but as the one young fellow says to the mother of his girlfriend, he says, "No, I'm a university graduate."
Yeah.
You know, and we have the scene in which she is, you know, converted to, because she just thinks that he's a loser worker of
Yeah.
some kind, in which she discovers his skill as a pianist. It's actually, you know, a rather touching scene that again has absurd comic consequences that ultimately, I'm not quite sure who's seducing whom there, but let's just say they end up in bed.
Yeah.
They end up in bed together. So that's it's very interesting that state of who they are changes. I mean, we at first we think, oh well, you know, they're just these comic losers, and then we begin to understand that each of them has a backstory, and that we're following three people who it's not so much that we become involved in their backstory family dramas, but it's a kind of social drama that they've been involved in.
Yeah, and it's a funny movie. I believe that it has kind of a true and not very funny story that it tells in a funny way, and this is what I like. I mean, to me, I believe that the movie is very communicative, and honestly, I don't think that any audience would have problem to understand the movie.
No, not at all. I think it's a story well told, and told in a comic manner. Certainly with a change we can talk about in a while, with a change in that final sequences of the film, where the film makes a kind of change. But certainly, let's say the first 30 minutes or so of the film, there's considerable skill in the balancing of the three stories of the three young men, of the development of each one of their absurd situations, and then how they're coming together for again this comically absurd task of the contest of who can offload these you know these goods, the cement bags, you know, from the train. And I must say that it works in a very straightforward manner, the storytelling, and we get immediate access to, you know, characters whose situation we're interested in.
Yeah, and at the same time, I believe that the story is not predictable. Like, you can't tell what will happen in the next moment. Like, I love this scene from the beginning of the movie, when he's in the bed with the friend of his wife.
Exactly.
Actually. And the way it's presented by him waking up, picking up the phone, we don't know what's going on. Then we realize there is a scary woman beside him. And then we see the face of the wife. I love this. And the movie goes like this. It leads you, but it doesn't give you enough clues, you know, in order to predict, oh, okay, now I kind of know what will happen next, which I like very much. What I like very much about this movie, as an actress as well, is the acting. I really love the way the guys, three of them, and all the actors in the movie play. And I believe that maybe Ivailo Hristov contributed big time on this, because when we were talking directors, how two directors work with each other, I asked them, how did you guys work with actors, being two directors? They told me that it wasn't difficult. I am not quite sure if it was that easy. But sometimes some directors work good with actors and some are difficult to work with. And usually it shows in the movie. This movie, I believe that behind the camera, Ivailo Hristov did great job with the actors, because they are all good, and they play play the same game, if you know what I mean.
Right. No, absolutely the case. And in fact, there is something interesting you were telling me a little bit earlier before we came in to do this about this, that there's a relationship between where these actors are and the actual theme of the film, because not all of these actors are currently in Bulgaria. Where are they and what are they doing?
Well, some of them, like the one that plays the so-called cop officer, he plays in Vienna. The guy's in Burg Theater, and he went to shoot the movie in Bulgaria. And the other guy, the king of the gypsies, you remember the one that did a bet on them? He lives and works in Istanbul. And again, he came for the movie, as I came back from New York for Glass Marbles. So we are kind of flying all over the world to be able to keep our native film industry, going on and working, which is interesting, new situation.
Well, no, but I think it's a very interesting situation, and it's while we're talking about it specifically in the Bulgarian context, there are real parallels between the Bulgarian cinema and any number of national cinemas, and you have to say the American independent cinema as well.
Yeah.
Because people need to work, and there's always, how shall I put it, a relationship between smaller national cinemas and, let's be honest, the transnational corporations. And to say that they're Hollywood, people should understand Hollywood's not American. Hollywood is international. It's an international enterprise. Absolutely. And at different times, the Japanese, the French have had major ownership in the thing called Hollywood. But we've got that huge apparatus. And then you have the fact that people have a relationship with it, which can be good, okay, is not a bad thing, and that large industry can produce many things of quality. But it's a huge thing. And then you have the fact that you can go from there, and you can go from working in Turkey or working in Vienna, working on an American miniseries that's being filmed in Germany. I'm making things, but common kinds of things like that, and come back and be able to work, not constantly, not forever, but occasionally and in the right way in your national cinema.
Yeah. Well, the world is already even smaller place than it used to be, and everybody's working everywhere. Like, as you know, we brought independent film productions from overseas to shoot in Bulgaria, and so it's like everybody goes. Max von Sydow, by the way, the opposite example, not Bulgarian going back to Bulgaria to shoot, but Max von Sydow, a great Swedish actor, who shot in one Bulgarian movie, and I hope to show this movie next year. Last year he shot it in Bulgaria. So, but for Bulgarian cinema, which was very much closed, having a very borders all around it for such a big amount of years, 40, 50 years during the communist era, opening itself now is a great thing. People being able to go and let's talk even just specifically just for a second. We'll come back to Emigrants, but about a film that you were involved with in a number of ways, which was the film called The Gray Zone, which was about the Holocaust, which was shot in Bulgaria and directed by Tim Blake Nelson, who most people know as the third convict in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, etc. And that's an example of a film set in Europe, not specifically in Bulgaria, but American independent filmmaker
joining together to combine resources with the Bulgarian national film industry to make a film of considerable distinction.
Yes.
Considerable distinction.
Absolutely, and not that I was so involved. I just had the pleasure to help them a little bit while they were in Bulgaria, and it was really a pleasure because Tim Blake Nelson is a great guy and cinematographer, you know, my opinion. And but yeah, then the Gray Zone is just one of the examples. I mean, lately in Bulgaria, not less than 10 foreign productions had been shot, so it became big location market.
Okay, well this complicates, you know, everything. So, but in perhaps in useful ways to everyone. That you have the major industries, European or North American, who use a national cinema that's now available and its production resources that feeds the industry. So maybe there are more opportunities for the national industry itself. It allows people from the national industry to get exposure, even if they have, say, minor parts, or those could be acting parts, or it can be, for example, a cinematographer or a set designer who gets an opportunity to show what she or he can do in that larger context. Well, maybe we should get back, however, to the film, to the film at hand. What are some of the other things that you think of as the virtues of this film, and the way in which it may be pointing towards certain directions of the Bulgarian cinema of the future, maybe? What do you like about the film?
As I told you, not only that I like it, but it kind of diversified from the other movies is that I think it's very communicative.
Okay.
And I admire this. I mean, I'm happy that such a movie was created. And I just love that it's a beautifully made movie. At the same time, this movie, from all that you saw, the 5 movies that we show, 5 Bulgarian movies, this movie is the one that talks for nowadays Bulgaria the most.
Okay.
So if you're a foreigner interested in, okay, let's see, what does this Bulgaria look like these days? Well, it pretty much looks like this. Let's not forget that this is a, you know, a funny movie, comedy. Big part of it is comedy. So a lot of things are a little bit exaggerated, etc. But still, you have a very broad picture of the nowadays society through the eyes of these 3 young, relatively young, intelligent, talented men. And you know, I love this.
Well, I think, for example, the opening sequence of the film itself that introduces everything in this highly accessible manner. Virtually all, it's like a nice overture in which all of the themes are introduced, and also all the, you know, the tone of comedy is certainly introduced to it, but also all the contradictions. That here is this beautiful countryside. Here are, you know, airlines of the world. Certainly, Air France is, you know, is featured here, coming and going, and yet you have this sort of, you know, crummy little place where people are just selling beer and sausage and pop, and that this, you know, manifest, you know, if not impoverished, at least not economically prosperous, let's be kind, third world atmosphere is right there up against all the ambitions to be a fully modern, integrated into the European community kind of nation. And that's, I think, rather beautifully communicated in a very clear and concise manner by the filmmaker in the opening scenes. And then, you know, people come back. I love the scene we've already mentioned before with the King of the Gypsies.
Yes.
and this whole notion of you didn't think you could outwit a gypsy, did you?
Yes, absolutely. And how they trick him. I was laughing a lot at this. The last part of the movie in Bulgaria, maybe this will be interesting, I don't know. There was this controversy. Some of the people didn't like the last portion of the movie when they go to the hotel.
What were the objections?
They thought it goes out of the style of the movie, and that it seemed like a separate novel.
Mm-hmm.
I totally disagree. I mean, I didn't see it this way, and I just wanted to mention that if it seemed exaggerated, the whole situation, it's not. It's not.
Okay, well, it's a very important thing. And one of the things that I like about the film is that it goes both in two directions, and by that I mean that we see them, as you I think stated so well early in the show, we see them dreaming of the emigrant. They're already there as emigrants in a certain way, and then in the last section of the film, it's as if they've displaced that dreaming on maybe it could happen here. Maybe there's another place within the country in some kind of way. They get there, and things do not go well.
Exactly.
And it's as if we have all the stories here in the West. We have all the news reports of how everyone feared about how the regimes were run in the East before the fall of the regimes was true. I mean, we have all the revelations, not only about the tunnels and the secret police, all that, but also the whole notion of there being hidden places of privilege.
Yeah.
That were that. Now the point is that here, a number of years later, why would the society need something like this? But the film posits, well, here is, sad to say, one of the continuities. Just as the elite of the communist era needed their private residence that no one could know about, or so somehow the society has made that transfer, and there are new elites that need the same kind of thing. And it's not a place where these three young men can emigrate.
Yeah, exactly. The movie makes this circle.
Right.
And finally, the end is kind of frightening.
Right.
Because you already don't know if there is any place to immigrate where it would be better.
Well, and I think the filmmaker, is well aware of the fact that how shall I put it, the instability and economic ups and downs of Argentina. Okay, Argentina is well known in the world. It's not any kind of secret to Argentina itself or to the world. So their whole notion of the pattern of immigration, if you look back 75 or 100 years ago, when people were making a decision, it was the decisions were different, because really, if you went to Chicago or Buenos Aires, it was exactly the same kind of decision. It's not 100 years later. Yet they're still dreaming about, well, is accordion the same thing in their language?
Yeah.
So there's a way in which their dreams are never hitched to reality. Is that?
They're not practical, that's true.
Yeah.
That's for sure. But I believe that at the end of the movie especially, it kind of goes out of only the question, well, is it better to emigrate from Bulgaria or it's not worth it? Because it's not Bulgaria already the subject. It's, this kind of intellectual vacuum.
That's
and
right.
Where do we fit? I mean, in this era, when everything is different, the borders are different. The whole situation in the world is kind of new for all of us. So, and these guys are kind of left behind, but at the same time with a lot of value that somehow makes you ask yourself, okay, it wouldn't be good if all this will be lost. So
very well put.
There is a question to be answered here. Where does this all go?
No, I think it's very well put, because as I said earlier, the first implication in the film is that they're just losers because they're somewhere down in the lower economic strata. Then when we learn more about them and their background, alas, we may still recognize that they are going to be losers, or it looks like they're going to be losers, but it's a very, very different situation, because they're losers, you might say, in the New World Order. That the world has been reshaped in a way in which every expectation they had, every hope they had about which is also very interesting. They're not greedy. That is, we don't see their dreams are not the dreams of, I need to go and become a millionaire and do this. No, their dream is much more sort of modest, of just having the freedom to be a little bit more of who they want to be.
Yeah.
Interesting that this film references American culture a great deal.
Yes.
And that's accurate. This notion of the interest in things American among this generation.
Yes. We were educated. We had the chance those years to be educated with the best of American culture. You know, we were seeing only the best of Bulgarian film, American film.
Okay.
In Bulgaria, and we were trying to, to study from it big time. It was our favorite cinema. Now I'm talking here 80s,
right?
In the 80s, and we were very well acquainted with American literature as well, in its best. So this reference to Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid is something very important for the authors of the movie, because this was the movies that they grew up with while they were dreaming to become cinematographers. These were the movies that kind of...
Well, and it's very interesting that the movie that they would choose is, of course, a Western, which is two things. I mean, one, it's about a whole mythology of a pre-industrial United States and freedom.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not about a post-industrial United States, it's about a pre-industrial United States. And second of all, it is actually about characters, as everybody who knows Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, who are just like these characters, sort of dreamers, and none too bright also about the way they go about things. So they're identifying with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, resonates in I think some particularly rich ways.
Yeah, and in a way, the end of Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid being killed, slaughtered, and the way these guys will end kind of meets somewhere.
No, I think it meets very well. And I'm also sorry to tell you that our meeting here has to come to an end now because we've run through our time. Let me give some information to people. If you enjoyed this series about the Bulgarian cinema, I hope you'll come back to City Cinematheque and sample with us some of the other places that we go in the archives of film history. If you'd like to know more about the series, the best way to do so is by visiting our website. The website is www.cuny.tv. Again, www.cuny.tv. Go there, click on City Cinematheque. You'll find our schedule. Also, you'll find many interesting things on the website and ways to communicate with us by email if you wish to do so. Jana, it's been a pleasure having you back here. I want to thank you for the key role you've played in bringing these 5 films to us, giving us a window on a country, a culture, an industry, and that window doesn't open very frequently, and I think we've had a very nice view through it.
Thank you very much for this chance. Thank you.
Okay, my pleasure. And I hope that you join us once again when we look through other windows on the history of international cinema and its classics. Thanks for joining us today.